He was a racist. That's what Garth Crooks learned about football, not from a textbook, not from a coach, but from the spit that landed on his face and the monkey chants that followed him on the pitch. At 67 years old, Garth Crooks has seen it all. He broke barriers as a player. He fought battles as a pundit, and now he's naming names. This is the story of 5 footballers and figures that Garth Crooks will never forgive, not because he holds grudges, but because some betrayals cut too deep to heal. Let's start with the ones you know, the modern scandals that shook English football to its core. Suarez and John Terry, 2 names that became symbols of everything wrong with how football handles racism. But here's the twist. Garth Crooks doesn't just blame the players. He blames something much bigger, the clubs that protected them. In 2011, Luis Suarez racially abused Patrice Evra during a match between Liverpool and Manchester United. The Football Association investigated. They found Suarez guilty. They handed down a ban. Case closed. Right? Wrong. Because what happened next is what Garth Crooks will never forgive. Liverpool Football Club stood by their not reluctantly, but with full force. They defended Suarez even after the ruling came down. They suggested Evra had made it all up. They wore T-shirts supporting their player before a match, and manager Kenny Dalglish, he refused to even discuss it. Garth Crooks was furious. He called out Dalglish publicly. He said refusing to talk about racism was unacceptable. He asked a simple question. Does silence mean you agree with it? For Crooks, the answer was obvious. When you're a leader, you don't get to stay neutral on racism. Staying silent is taking a side, and it's the wrong side. But Liverpool's response did something worse than defend one guilty player. It sent a message to every black footballer in England. If you report abuse, you'll be alone. The victim gets isolated while the perpetrator keeps the backing of his club. Crooks believed this institutional failure would discourage other black players from speaking up. Why would you report racism if it means becoming the problem? If the entire football world turns against you while your abuser plays on like nothing happened? Liverpool's unwavering defence of Suarez wasn't just wrong. It was poisonous. It showed that clubs care more about their star players than doing the right thing. Crooks saw this as worse than the original abuse, because racism from one player is individual hatred. But institutional protection of racism, that's systematic failure. That's calculated moral compromise that allows prejudice to thrive. Then came John Terry, the Chelsea captain, the England defender. In 2011, he was accused of racially abusing Queen's Park Rangers player Anton Ferdinand during a match. Terry went to court. In July 2012, a magistrate cleared him of criminal charges, but the story didn't end there. The Football Association launched its own investigation, and unlike the court, the FA panel found Terry guilty. They called his defence improbable and implausible. They banned him for 4 matches. But what made Garth Crooks truly angry wasn't Terry's actions. It was Chelsea's priorities. When the case was heading to court, Chelsea asked the judge to delay the trial. Why? Because they were busy. They needed Terry on the field. They had important matches to play. Think about that. A racism investigation was less important than winning football games. Chelsea showed the world exactly what mattered to them. Performance over principles. Trophies over truth. He used the Terry case to make a bigger point. Racism lurks within the dressing room. It's not just fans hurling abuse from the stands. It's teammates. It's captains. It's the people who should be setting the standard. Terry was Chelsea captain. He was England captain. He was supposed to be a leader. Instead, he showed that, even at the highest level, prejudice persists. And the clubs? They enable it. They protect their valuable assets. They ask courts to wait because they're busy winning games. Crooks also pointed out something devastating. The Professional Footballers Association, the very organisation meant to protect players, had a policy of not getting involved in disputes between players. So when one player racially abuses another, the system designed to help them breaks down completely. Crooks knew this firsthand. He had been the first black chairman of the PFA. He helped build these systems. And now he was watching them fail at the exact moment they were needed most. Both the Suarez and Terry cases taught Crooks the same lesson. Football clubs will always protect their marketable stars. They'll sacrifice ethics for wins. They'll throw victims under the bus to keep their best players on the pitch. This calculated betrayal is more unforgivable than crude racism from ignorant fans. Because it's deliberate. It's institutional. It's the difference between someone shouting abuse in anger and someone in a suit making a business decision to defend that abuse. But to understand why Garth Crooks holds these modern failures so close to his heart, you need to go back to when he was the player facing the abuse, back to when he learned that success doesn't protect you from hatred. Picture this. It's 1978. Garth Crooks is playing for the England under-21 team. He's representing his country. That match, he scores a hat-trick, 3 goals, a perfect performance. The kind of game every footballer dreams about. And then the chants start. Monkey noises, racial slurs, spit flying from the crowd, not from opposing fans, from England's own supporters. The same people who should have been celebrating his brilliance were instead hurling racist abuse at him. Think about how that must have felt. You just scored 3 goals for your country. You gave everything on that pitch. And your reward is hatred. Pure racism from the very fans you're representing. That moment taught Garth Crooks something he's never forgotten. Success does not grant immunity from prejudice. It doesn't matter how many goals you score. To some people, the colour of your skin will always matter more than the quality of your character. This wasn't an isolated incident. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Crooks endured relentless abuse. He carved out his career through spit and monkey chants. Week after week, match after match. The hostility was constant. Years later, when asked about those experiences, Crooks said he didn't want to talk about the rampant abuse he suffered as a player. Why? Because it's too painful. Even decades later, the memories cut deep. Think about what it means when Garth Crooks talks about these modern players and clubs. He's not just a pundit offering opinions. He's someone who lived through the worst football had to offer. Someone who faced abuse that was supposed to have ended. When he criticises Liverpool for defending Suarez or Chelsea for protecting Terry, he's speaking from a place of deep betrayal. These institutions are repeating the same failures that hurt him decades ago. They're just doing it in suits now instead of on terraces. So let me ask you something. After everything Garth Crooks endured, after scoring that hat-trick for England only to face racist abuse from his own fans, can you blame him for never forgiving the clubs that defended Suarez and Terry? This isn't about holding grudges. It's about watching history repeat itself. If you've made it this far into the story, do me a favour, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment telling me what you think about fans abusing players who represent their own country, because that's the kind of betrayal that shapes a person forever. Now let's talk about another figure Garth Crooks won't forgive, but this one has nothing to do with racism. This is about professional respect, about being valued for your skills. Alan Durban was Garth Crooks' manager at Stoke City in the late 1970s. Crooks had established himself as a prolific striker, a centre-forward who knew how to score goals. He top-scored for Stoke in back-to-back seasons, 19 goals in 1 year alone. But Durban had other ideas. He decided to play Crooks out of position, not as a striker, but as a winger. Week after week, Durban put Crooks on the wing instead of letting him do what he did best. For Crooks, this wasn't just a tactical decision. It was professional disrespect, a manager ignoring proven talent and forcing a player into a role that didn't fit his strengths. That's what Durban did to Crooks. And Crooks wasn't having it. He openly criticised his manager. He challenged the decision publicly. He refused to accept being diminished. The tension grew so bad that Crooks handed in a transfer request. He was willing to leave his hometown club rather than accept being misused. And he did leave. In the summer of 1980, he moved to Tottenham Hotspur. At Spurs, he thrived. He won 2 FA Cups. He won the UEFA Cup. He even became the first black player to score in an FA Cup final. The Alan Durban conflict taught Crooks something crucial. When people in power make bad decisions that affect your value, you fight back. You don't accept it quietly. You challenge authority when authority is wrong. This lesson stayed with him. When he sees managers or executives making decisions that seem wrong or unfair, he speaks up. This principle extends beyond football positions. Crooks applies the same unforgiving standard to integrity on the pitch. He's publicly criticised Mohamed Salah for diving. He accused the Liverpool star of messing with his reputation by going down too easily. He warned that continued simulation would tarnish Salah's legacy. More recently, Crooks condemned Luis Diaz for what he called histrionics during a match against Everton. He said Diaz rolled over at least 5 times for dramatic effect after being fouled. For Crooks, this isn't just unsporting behaviour. It's fundamentally dishonest. A player who simulates is lying. A player who dives is cheating. Just like an institution that defends a racist is fundamentally dishonest, a player who fakes fouls is betraying the integrity of the game. This is what makes Garth Crooks's moral authority so powerful. He applies the same standard to everything. Racism is unforgivable. Institutional cover-ups are unforgivable. Professional disrespect is unforgivable. Cheating is unforgivable. Whether it's crude abuse from fans, calculated protection from clubs, managerial incompetence, or player dishonesty, Crooks demands truth and integrity above all else. Think about the pattern here. Every figure or entity that Crooks refuses to forgive represents a failure of basic standards. Fans who abused him failed to see him as human. Alan Durban failed to respect his professional value. Liverpool failed to prioritise ethics over star power. Chelsea failed to put morality above match results. Terry failed to treat fellow players with basic decency, and players who dive fail to compete honestly. These aren't random grudges. They're connected by a single thread. They're all manifestations of disrespect, of people or institutions choosing the easy path instead of the right one. Crooks has spent his entire post-playing career fighting against these failures because he lived through them. He knows what it costs when systems fail. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because Garth Crooks didn't just become bitter, he became a guardian. Someone determined to make sure the next generation doesn't face what he faced. After retiring in 1990, he became a major pundit on BBC's Match of the Day. He became the first black chairman of the Professional Footballers Association. He received an OBE in 1999 for his services to football. He worked with Kick It Out on anti-racism campaigns. He helped provide equality training to all 72 Football League clubs. In 2012, after the Suarez and Terry scandals, Crooks attended a summit at 10 Downing Street with Prime Minister David Cameron. But when reporters asked if the summit was meaningful, he barely paused before answering. He thought it was a bit of spin. He wasn't interested in photo opportunities. He wanted action. Real, enforceable action. He said the only value in government involvement was if football authorities were forced to come back with an actual plan to tackle racism. This is who Garth Crooks is. Someone who survived systemic betrayal and turned it into systematic change. Someone who refuses to accept spin when substance is needed. Someone whose unforgiveness isn't about personal vendetta, but about protecting others from experiencing what he endured. The players and institutions Crooks won't forgive aren't just names on a list. They're lessons. They're warnings. They're proof that football still has work to do, that racism still lurks in dressing rooms, that clubs still value trophies over truth, that even today, victims can be abandoned while perpetrators are protected. Garth Crooks will never forgive Luis Suarez's defenders at Liverpool because their unwavering support discouraged other victims from speaking up. He'll never forgive Chelsea for asking courts to delay a racism investigation because they were too busy winning games. He'll never forgive John Terry for using his position as captain to abuse a fellow professional. He'll never forgive the fans who threw racist abuse at him after he scored a hat-trick for England. He'll never forgive Alan Durban for disrespecting his professional value. And he'll never forgive players who cheat and dive, because dishonesty in any form betrays the sport. These aren't grudges. They're standards. And maybe that's exactly what football needs. Someone who won't forget. Someone who won't move on. Someone who holds the game accountable because he knows what happens when nobody does. At 67, Garth Crooks remains an ethical guardian. Not because he's unforgiving, but because some things should never be forgotten. Some betrayals should echo as warnings. His ultimate forgiveness is his refusal to let others be failed the way he was failed. His reward for surviving decades of abuse isn't peace or reconciliation. It's the power to demand better, to use his voice and authority to make sure racism has no hiding place. Not in the stands, not in the dressing rooms, and definitely not in the boardrooms of football clubs who claim to care about equality while protecting players who violate it. So there you have it. 5 figures Garth Crooks will never forgive, and honestly, maybe he shouldn't. If you found this story powerful, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into football history, and check out our next video where we explore more untold stories from the beautiful game. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't about who won trophies, they're about who fought for something bigger than football itself.